It's another amazing Wednesday morning right here in the city of Lagos. Good morning and welcome to the traffic report segment right here on AM Cafe, coming to you from the studios of IATV. My name is Folashade Ogurinde. This morning we'll take a review of the traffic report situation along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway. And helping us with this report this morning is Route Commander Florence Ofe of the FRSC Ogun State Command. She is on the line now to give us updates on the traffic report. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Fine, thank you.
All right. Please quickly take us through the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. What exactly is going on there now?
The traffic situation on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, toward Lagos from Tollgate Ibadan to Onigari, the traffic is free. Onigari Alapako free flow. Alapako Fidowo is also free. Interchange is free. Car RCC, the traffic is free. Mowe is free. Ashishi, Ibafo, the slow movement of vehicle due to the narrow lane at the diversion point. Maburu also, another slow movement at Maburu Bridge. Then Opik down to Baker, free flow of vehicular movement. The other section of the expressway is Lagos-Ibadan, vehicle going out of Lagos. Baker Opik is free. Maburu MFM, the traffic is also free. Ibafo is free. Ashishi Mowe, free flow. Car interchange is also free. Interchange to Fidowo, Onigari, Alapako, down to Tollgate Ibadan, free flow of regular movement. There is no crash and no obstruction on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway this morning.
All right, thank you very much. Now let's switch gears now to the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway. What is the traffic situation on that route?
The Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway this morning, area where we are having slow movement of vehicle. We have slow movement of vehicle at Kola to Alakuko, the slow movement of vehicle. Owede to Yanologu also, another slow movement of vehicle. Iweko Lafai, cement, slow movement of vehicle, due to the back portion of the road. Then we have another one at Yanosele to Wode and Ifo to Papa, slow movement. These are areas where we are facing slow movement of vehicle, while other sections of the road remain free for now. FRSC advise motorists to drive cautiously, avoid dangerous driving, because you have adequate knowledge of the road condition, then consider other road users, obey traffic rules and regulations. Call FRSC toll-free number 122 to report any crash or obstruction. Thank you.
Many thanks, Route Commander, for bringing us up to speed on the traffic situation on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
All right, up next is Newspaper Review. Don't go anywhere. We'll join you shortly.
Welcome to the newspaper review segment on AM Cafe. If you're just joining the show, we are still here in Lagos, and I'm Faith Agbetuya. We'll be reviewing the Nation newspaper, the Punch newspaper, the Guardian newspaper, the Nigerian Tribune, as well as the Vanguard newspaper. But then I won't be reviewing all of that alone this morning. I have my colleague with me in the studio. I have Folashade. How are you, Shade?
I'm very fine. Thank you. Good morning, Faith.
Good morning to you.
And it's a cloudy Wednesday morning.
Exactly. Such a cold day.
Yeah, we hope it doesn't rain because, of course, Lagos doesn't really have good drainage system. So we hope it doesn't rain this morning. But
cause traffic.
Exactly. Without wasting much time, let's head now to the review this morning. And we'll begin with the Nigerian Tribune. Now, the first story here says federal government sends EFCC, ICPC, NFIU after 20 AMCOM debtors to enforce a recovery of over 5 trillion naira debts. That story is on page 10 if you want to know those exactly who are owing. So let's move on to other stories here. Banned IMN protesters will be prosecuted using Terrorism Act, says IGP. That story is on page 9 of the Nigerian Tribune. And the writer says Federal Government Gazette's prescription order. 2019 election didn't meet threshold for credible poll. Civil Society Situation Room. That story is on page 39 of the Nigerian Tribune. Insecurity set up National Mediation Council now. Abdulsalami Roundtable tells Buhari. That story is on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. Let's move on now to other stories. We didn't submit our certificates to army, Buhari's mate tells election tribunal. I received Buhari's 1961 WASC from Cambridge, July 18, says Abba Yari. That story is on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune and continued on page 36 of the same newspaper. Northwest, Southwest favored as Lawan releases list of Senate committees chairman as Senate confirms all ministerial nominees. That story is on page 2 of the Nigerian Tribune. Flood sacks over 1,000 residents in Ilorin. That's on page 30. EFCC arrests 15-year-old boys in Ibadan. That story is also on page 30 of the Nigerian Tribune. Issue fresh proclamation, or we take over Edo Assembly, Senate tells Obaseki. Illegality won't stand Edo government. Senate should not be eager to take over Assembly, says Okorocha. That story is on page 6 of the Nigerian Tribune. I think that's all we have reported on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Let's switch gears now to The Nation.
On The Nation this morning, we have the banner headline on that paper, Buhari's CEOs carry to court. And we have Atiku wasn't born Nigerian. PDP candidates shouldn't have run. And President tenders credentials. President Muhammadu Buhari opened yesterday his defense in the petition by Atiku Abubakar and his party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, before the Presidential Election Petition Court, PEPC. President Buhari, whose legal team is led by Wole Olanipe, contended about 26 sets of documents and called 3 witnesses, including his chief of staff, Abba Kyari. That story continues on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. It's actually getting funny now that this talk about Atiku Abubakar not being a Nigerian is getting more serious and tense, that because that was one of the things Buhari presented to as to tender against Atiku. Well, away from that story, Senate confirms all 43 ministerial nominees. That's on page 42, page 2 of the Nation newspaper. The Nigerian Senate has confirmed all 43 ministerial nominees of President Muhammadu Buhari, and Abiola would have resolved ethno-religious crisis on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. If you want to see what that is about and who has made that statement, you can move on to page 6 of that paper. Obaseki kicks at Senate, gives deadline on page 40. El Zakzaki led IMN is fake, says Shiites on page 3 of the Nation newspaper. Wow, that's kind of funny. So you can want to see what the Shiites are actually saying, that the group, the El Zakzaki led IMN, is not a real one. You can move on to page 43 of the Nation newspaper. Turkey fans welcome Mikel Obi on page 44. And 80,724 shortlisted for 10,000 police jobs across the nation on page 8 of the Nation newspaper. We have 2 ex-governors, 103 others in trouble over 5 trillion naira debts. The new battle plan to recover 5 trillion naira debts has been drawn up. It was launched yesterday, and a task force which will recover the Assets Management Corporation of Nigeria, AMCON's death, has been raised by the federal government. That story continues on page 6 if you want to see details of it. We have Lawan names 69 committee chairman on page 8 and 59,000 for Uniloring post-UTME on page 43 of the Nation newspaper. Now there is a picture here, or some pictures of a raging fire yesterday and another set of burnt vehicles yesterday. A row of burnt vehicles at Owode Oniri Market at the outskirts of Lagos. Yesterday, we have 20 vehicles and 10 shops burnt in Lagos fire yesterday. That's on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Now with that story, we'll move on to stories reported on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
The Vanguard this morning is reporting with this lead story, Shiites banned for engaging in subversion. IGP Adamo says group pledged alliance to foreign nations to rule Nigeria. Don't turn Nigeria to battleground, Shiite group warns Saudi Arabia and Iran. Reverse yourself on Shiite prescription, Onyeka urges federal government, says Nigeria's security has worsened in the last 5 years. You can find the story on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper. Other stories making the front page, federal government inaugurates task force to enforce recovery of 5 trillion naira AMCON debt. That story is on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. Papa gridlock, situation worsens as traffic management turns money-making venture. That story is on page 27. Obaseki Senate lock hands over Edo Assembly. That's on page 12. PDP kicks as APC wants Atiku arrested for alleged felony. That story is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. And other stories here. Ministers, Senate confirms Akpabio, Akume, Fashola, Amechi, 39 others as ministers. That story is on page 39 of the Vanguard newspaper. With regards to the presidential poll, Buhari opens defense, tenders school certificate in evidence. Supreme Court adjourns Atiku, PDP's appeal to August 20. That story is on page 8 of the Vanguard newspaper. And British PM Boris Johnson appoints Nigerian as minister. That's on page 7, and we say congratulations to our. On page 8, we have the story, Why I Won't Name My Successor, says Buhari. That story is on page 8. 8 die in Taraba, 3 killed in Benue communal crisis. That's on page 6 of the Vanguard newspaper. Abiola would have saved Nigeria from ethnic religious tensions. That statement was made by Buhari, and you can find the story on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. That's all I have on the Vanguard this morning. Let's head now to the Punch.
All right, two stories reported on the front page of the Punch newspaper. I'll have the banner headline on that paper reading, Shiites blames Saudi Arabia and Inspector General orders clamp down, on page 2 and page 10 of the Punch newspaper. That's on government ban. FG gazettes court orders prescribing sect. That's FG has gazetted court orders prescribing the Islamic movement of Nigeria. We have now, away from that story, we move on to FG insists worship centers must get wedding license, and the Christian Association of Nigeria kicks against this. They are saying that branches can use headquarters license, and the federal government is saying that branches can use headquarters license. And have another rider to that story. The federal government has an ulterior motive, saying that's coming from the Christian Association of Nigeria. If you want to see what that story is about, you can move on to page 2 of the Punch newspaper. FG raises panel to recover 5 trillion naira AMCON debts, on page 25. And we have also, I have no intention of grooming successors, and it's coming from Buhari. That story is on page 12 if you want to see details of it. Now, away from that, we move on to Oshoba to sue Okunromu for 3 billion naira YCE 6 truths, on page 43 of the Punch newspaper. Now, Oshoba is suing Okunromu for libel, and is asking him to pay him a sum of 3 billion naira. You may want to see details of that on page 43 of the Punch newspaper. APC wants Atiku against felony, on page 12. We didn't submit certificates to Hami. Buhari's classmate has said this, and you have that on page 13 of the Punch newspaper. Ndume, Amosun, Nnamani, Melai, others head Senate committees, on page 9. Baby dies as Lagos boss crushes mother. That's a bad one. And we have that story on page 4 and 5 if you want to see details of it. We have also another story here. Don't set Edo ablaze. Obaseki tells Senate. You have that on page 10 of the Punch newspaper if you want to see what the Edo State governor is actually saying while addressing the Senate not to set Edo ablaze. You can move on to page 10 of the Punch newspaper. I also have a picture here of a section of Abule or Shore Road off Giwa Lambe Road. Lambe, if for local government area of Ogun State on Tuesday. We have that place. It's a kind of section of the road where you have the bad state of that road. That's a picture on the front page of the Punch newspaper. Now with that, we'll move on to stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
Right, let's head with the story. Senate urged on takeover of Edo Assembly, say lawyers. Others with the riders fought 1 week ultimatum. Illegality won't stand. Obaseki vows. State Speaker denies crisis as Lawan insists on takeover bid. That story is on the front page of the Guardian and continued on page 6 of the same newspaper. On page 9, we have the story, why war against Boko Haram may not end soon, by Borno State Governor. That statement was made by him, and you can go on to page 8 to see the reasons why he has made this statement. Why I won't name my likely successor now, by Buhari, says Abiola presidency would have prevented tension Ogun leaders thank President for honoring MKO, seek rehabilitation of federal roads in the states. That's on the front page of The Guardian, and continued on page 6 of the same newspaper. Police ban IMN's activities nationwide, recruit 40,000. That story is on page 3. Senate confirms all 43 ministerial nominees, 6 12-month budget cycle. That's on page 3 of The Guardian newspaper. Again, protesting youths kill 8 persons in Taraba State. You can find a story on page 4. And finally, on the front page of The Guardian, we have the story. Buhari's certificate gains currency as president opens defense at tribunal. That story is on page 4 of The Guardian newspaper. And I think that's an end to this newspaper review today.
Exactly. Now that's the much we can give you this morning. That's the much we can review on the newspaper review segment on AM Cafe this morning. I am Faith Agbetuya. I would like you to join us tomorrow as we give you an update of what is going on in Nigeria and in different Nigerian dailies.
And I'm Folashade Ogurinde saying take care, goodbye. Over now to Ibadan for the rest of the program.